All right, do you want to go ahead and get started? Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for participating in the AMDA's first Talking with Your Pompe Peeps series via Zoom. This is an open forum where everyone can ask questions and discuss topics together. Our first meeting is on the elementary school experience, building success for IOPD and LOPD children through collaboration and partnership. Today's guest speaker is Colleen Sackos. Colleen is the proud mother of 3 and an educator with over 15 years of experience as a teacher and administrator in the elementary school setting in both Oregon and Arizona. Her youngest son, Axel, has infantile onset Pompe and just finished kindergarten. She lives in Happy Valley, Oregon, and is grateful to be part of the Pompe community. Colleen, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again to the AMDA and our entire Pompe community for the ongoing support and the opportunity for us to continue to learn from each other and just help our entire community and our individuals and especially our children grow and thrive. And attending AMDA in San Antonio this year was a really moving experience for me. I learned so much from my time there. And when I thought about what I could contribute, I have worked in elementary schools for over 15 years. And as I was sharing earlier with some friends, I have 3 kids. Axel's my youngest of 3, and my older 2 will be in middle school this year. And Axel just finished his first year of kindergarten. And as with every child, their journey is so unique. And I feel like as a parent, I learned so much about preparing for elementary school and going through our first year of elementary school. And I thought I could offer some insight into our experience that might be helpful for other families. But as we said, I'm certainly want this to be an open time for conversation. I'll share about our experience, but also share my contact information. I'm more than willing to chat with anyone or have conversations after today. So as Tiffany said, and feel free to interrupt or raise your hand or let me know if you have a question or would like to share. I'm going to go through a couple slides and happy to talk throughout the slides, but also at the end have some questions to prompt a question and answer time. So again, the title of our time today is the Elementary School Experience, Building Success for IOPD and LOPD Children through Collaboration and Partnership. Sorry, there we go. So again, my name is Colleen Sackos. I'm the parent of 3. Axel is 6 years old. He has infantile onset Pompe disease. Ruby, you can see there, is 11. Jack is 13. They are carriers of Pompe. And I have been an educator for over 15 years. Disclaimer is just all the information here is provided by myself as a parent, not as a public employee of any kind. So here's Axel at school. And I just want to start by saying that all children have a right to experience growth and success as a student and at school. Every child's journey is unique, whether they have Pompe or not, and education looks different for every single child, but all children are deserving to access to instruction and an educational environment. Advocacy is key. You are your child's biggest champion. So I always encourage families when I'm asked questions as a mom, how did this go? How did that go? You are your child's biggest champion. So don't hesitate to contact the teachers, contact the school office, contact the district office, ask around. We all in the community, every single stakeholder wants to see our kids being successful. So by asking and communicating is the way that you can help inform people about your child and what's going to help them be successful. Every school, every district, every state have very different systems. So there's lots of local community members that can help other families. If you have educators that in your community, ask them, this is what we're thinking. This is what we have questions about. What should we know about this? And people are very willing to help and again, want to see our kids be successful. One thing we found success with as well, with Axel, this was something that occurred to me, as I was thinking more this week about, how could we help our kids thrive? people have different comfort levels with this, but really embracing your child's identity and who they are, I think can help our children thrive in school. So there's books about Pompe. I know that many members of our community have written books and sent books out to our children. So reading books about Pompe and classes, having kids share about Pompe, and how they stay healthy and strong. For example, any adaptive equipment they may use, sharing about their infusions. I know Axel missed every other Monday afternoon to go to infusions, and we openly talked about why he wasn't at school and where he was going. And he had a lovely teacher this year that asked him to share about his hearing aids and talk about how they help him be successful in school and life. So, and there were other kids, that were able to share about themselves that don't have Pompe. So, just that idea that we embrace who our kids are and how they stay healthy and strong, I think can really help kids be successful and feel like they're a strong part of their school community. There we go. The team. So there are often a lot of key stakeholders on a school team. You can see there's a little asterisk by a lot of these because not all stakeholders will work with every kid, but the general education teacher, the classroom teacher, you might work with your healthcare team, the school nurse. Axel had a healthcare protocol because he does have a port. So we wanted the team to be aware that, we had a few incidents throughout the year where he may have bumped into someone or something happened or there was redness, and we were in close communication about when to contact the family or what might be concerning. We also really encouraged Axel to communicate, if anything doesn't feel right or you don't feel good, let an adult know. If your child is a part of special education, which not all are, Axel is because of his hearing loss. So he has an individualized education plan. It's called Other Health Impairment. So it covers speech therapy. It covers any physical therapy needs he might have. So there might be a learning specialist, a speech and language pathologist, a physical therapist, sometimes an occupational therapist. Paraeducators are a key part of the team. So there's other names, instructional assistants, instructional aides. Axel's classroom had quite a few that would come in and out that knew him and helped him with reading or anything he might need in the classroom. A school psychologist can help more on the special education side. A school counselor can be really helpful just in helping kids adjust to school. Administrators, principals, assistant principals, district office administrators can be very helpful. Oftentimes school districts have social workers that can help kids adjust to the school experience. So you see there, that was the first day of kindergarten for Axel that we were able to go support him because families are a big part of the team as well. So some kids may need additional support, some kids may not, but examples of some plans that kids may need, a 504 plan can be whenever a child may need additional support to access an instructional environment. This can be initiated by a medical diagnosis or a different kind of diagnosis that can help brainstorm with the team different modifications or accommodations a student might need. And again, an IEP, an individualized education plan, is under the special education umbrella. So in Oregon, Axel had what's called an IFSP, an individualized family service plan in preschool. So he got speech therapy for the 2 years he was in preschool. And then that spring, we met with the elementary school team before he started kindergarten to talk about what did that look like in preschool and how that might look different in elementary school. So just that idea that some kids may be getting support even prior to school starting. We also got services in the home before he started preschool. So some families may get services at home that then can be communicated to the elementary school team, what was helpful, what was not, what that might look like in elementary school. I just put, there's lots of information online about how these plans work. And can be adapted for each child. I'm always happy to help, but I know there's lots of great information online as well. So preparing for elementary school, there's Axel's kindergarten picture, school picture. I just, again, want to emphasize collaboration is key. Don't hesitate if you have questions to email or call or just visit the school. Ask around, ask your neighbors. There's a lot of social media groups now for school groups and family groups that, you can ask questions that you might have about starting school. I know in our area, they had a program called I can't remember exactly what it's called, but anyways, the kindergartners started school a couple weeks before school actually started. It was optional, but it was like a chance to go in and just visit the school and be a part of the school. So that might be something that, you know, is an option in your community. And again, everybody has the same goal, growth and success for the child. So by reaching out, you know, it's not a bother. It's really saying, I want to let you know about my kid and let's work together to help them be successful. And there are many class options. You know, there's general education classes. There's general education where kids might be pulled out for services. That's what Axel did. Like he went and got speech services outside of the class in a different classroom. There's classrooms that are called, you know, it could be called like self-contained, where it's just students with IEPs in one classroom. I think I skipped over it. There's also a lot of school options. There's public schools, there's private schools, there's charter schools, there's specific schools for different types of students. And often that can be confusing to navigate. So again, don't hesitate to call your local public school district office and ask about what your options are, or ask community members what might be best for your child. And that can evolve and be fluid as well. So that's all the information I wanted to share just to start us off. And then I wanted to, you know, give time for some questions and answers. There's Axel, that was like a safety day they had at school, and he got it, you know, there were police officers and fire engines, and he was really excited to, you know, be experiencing school that day. So yeah, but I do just want to give time to talk about questions and answers. So what questions might you have about the impact that Pompe might have on your educational experience? What have been some of the challenges you may have experienced regarding school? What are some of the worries you might have about school? And what are some of the celebrations you've experienced with school? So just want to open it up now for our team.
I have a question.
Sure.
As an educator yourself, did you experience any anxiety sending Axel off to school?
Absolutely. So like I shared, I have two older kids that, you know, have their own set of strengths and challenges. And when I sent them to school, it was wonderful and we had our challenges. But with Axel, there was just an added layer of, I think, complexity and apprehension and nerves. And I will be really honest, even as he's going into first grade this year, a lot of those key stakeholders have left the school for various reasons, not anything, you know, someone got a, you know, job closer to home. And, you know, so a lot of the people that we relied on last year are not going to be there this year. And I even have nerves about that this year. So I think there's always going to be sort of an added, you know, conversation around, okay, how are we setting him up for success? So yes, I was very nervous, and I felt that my nerves were calmed by talking to people and making sure I felt that they knew, okay, if this happens with his port, you'll call me, right? You know, and I joked with the team because there were tears sometimes in meetings, not of sadness, but of, I think there was so much emotion behind sending him to school that once we sort of settled things, I'd feel a sense of relief. But he had some challenges this year. He broke his arm at school. That was non-Pompe related, but that was a challenge we experienced. So that was tricky. He had some emotional ups and downs. Wintertime, cold and flu season's hard. So we had to navigate not wanting to miss too much school, but wanting to keep him healthy. So absolutely. And that is part of our journey. And I think just by, again, why I wanted to emphasize that collaboration and that, you know, relying on those key stakeholders will help your child be successful.
I think you bring up a good point about, you know, the winter season and missing school and all of that. Because I remember even before I was diagnosed, I ended up with pneumonia one year, and I missed about a month of school, and that has its own challenges. And then now we're in the COVID era where you don't just have to worry about the flu and pneumonia, but COVID as well. So how have you worked with the school on absences and things like that?
Absolutely. It was hard. And, you know, for us, it felt different. I think when your child's in preschool, they miss a day or two, it's not that big a deal. And when they're in kindergarten, it feels different. You want them there every day. They're learning how to read, they're learning math, you know, you don't want them to miss too much. But yeah, in January, we had an ice storm, so we couldn't leave the house for about a week and there was no school. And then right after that, he got really sick and we missed about another week of school and then had to do infusions after that, you know, so it was just, I remember that being a really stressful time. And I just communicated with the school. I would send them emails and say, here's where we're at. You know, he still has a fever. He can't go to school. Now he has to have his infusion because he missed it. So he can't be at school. And I remember feeling stressed and they were always really reassuring that it's okay. You know, he's going to be okay. You know, there's no reason to, you know, feel that we should be doing anything any differently, like sending him to school when he's not feeling well. So they were also good about letting me know if anything, you know, came up with him at school so we could kind of keep an eye on his health together. So yeah, they were understanding. He missed quite a bit more school than I would say my other kids missed their kindergarten year, but he still made great progress with reading and math. And we tried to do as much as we could at home. And we've had some work. Sometimes we'll take to infusions, you know, we'll read books or work on writing, which I think is helpful too. So it wasn't easy, but we got through it as we all do. You just, you know, do your best with the resources you have.
I agree with you, Colleen and Tiffany. I know for me, it's been a little different for me the past 3 years because I've been homeschooled the last 3 years, obviously. But when I was in public school, early childhood until 10th grade, it was like, you know, when I got older, I had to miss for infusions once a week because obviously I was going for, you know, going to an infusion at Duke. And so, oh, sorry, my app had told me I had 10%. It might have messed up, but anyway, it was very frustrating because I would miss once a week for infusions, and that wasn't even on top of having doctor's appointments or being sick. And so that was really frustrating, and you know, I just felt like I got so behind, you know, from the other kids, and it was just, you know, frustrating. But one thing, because I had an IEP, and one thing that we made sure of is that I had extra time to turn my work in for that reason. And because, you know, with Pompe, I feel like when I get sick, it's a little bit tougher and, you know, more rough on me and my body when I get sick. So that was tough, you know, having to miss school, make up work, you know, check with the teachers the day before and say, hey, I'm not going to be at school tomorrow. Is there anything I can take with me? And, you know, try to do my infusion. So, you know, there was blessings throughout the school period too, but COVID really brought me many blessings because, you know, work at your own pace, do your own thing, whatever you want, as long as you get it done by the due date. And I hated being out of school, but COVID really brought me many blessings, and ultimately that was the ultimate decision. You know, when I was in 8th grade, I did online schooling, and then in 10th grade, you know, I'm like, I really liked it in 8th grade, and I feel like if I wouldn't have liked it so much in 8th grade, I might would have stayed with the public school. But when I was in 8th grade, I just realized, you know, I have flexibility. I can get my infusions at home and do my schoolwork during my infusions, not having to ask the teacher if there's any work that I can take home with me because it's all right there on a computer screen. And I'm going to be honest with you, the online experience for me has been amazing. It really has.
I think that's, you know, a really great point and something, you know, I've noticed with COVID just as an adult in meetings and conferences being more accessible, but to your point of school being more accessible, yeah, you have a valid point. And Colleen, how are schools doing it these days? I mean, I know pretty much virtual is out, but you know, are there options for kids that maybe have to miss an extended period of time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are online options. So I know like certain districts will have like, you know, virtual schools that you can attend full time, like you're talking about, Haley, which is awesome. And it's so nice to have the option. I do think that's something that came out of COVID, you know, is that we realize there's many different ways to learn and there's many different ways to access instruction, and what works for different kids and families may be different for others. I think that, you know, if that's something you're interested in, you know, looking at the different, you know, options that your district or community might provide. I also think if you are, you know, temporarily, like if there's a situation, you know, I know like some of our, you know, kids or adults, you know, I know Axel had to go through like the immunosuppressive protocol, you know, so if there's a period where you're having to be additionally careful about something, you could leave school for a couple months. And again, just talk to the school team. That 504 plan, you know, can be something that's, and IEPs too can be fluid and flexible. And some kids have them and then don't need them anymore. But with a 504 plan, it can cover temporarily. So, you know, if there's a couple months where a child is not able to attend school, that can provide supports to say, okay, this is how we're going to provide materials or access for a child during that time. So there's a lot of options there. And I think it's just important to talk to your school team about, you know, hey, this is our situation. What are our options to make sure our child, you know, stays up to speed with all the, you know, access to learning that we want them to have.
So when I was in 7th grade, and I'm not going to say how long ago that was, but it's been a minute, I ended up having to stop attending school. There was no treatment. My health was declining and it just wasn't physically possible. And at that point, we were looking at homeschooling options. This was back in the 90s. It really wasn't what it is today. And instead, one of my mom's cousins that was a local teacher told us that our school district had a program where the teacher would come to the homebound students. And I was wondering if that was still an option, because that's what I ended up doing for 7th through, you know, high school.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be an option too. I know at our local children's hospital, there's also like a teacher in a classroom at the hospital, so that kids can access learning there. And that's through the, you know, that's a local public option, you know, so that's something that, you know, if a child is spending extended period of time in the hospital, that's an option. Extended period of time at home, a teacher can go to them. So yeah, there really are a lot of different options and ways that we can support our students and help them be successful in their learning, even if they're not able to physically attend school every day. And those can be really, really great options for kids and families.
Morgan asked me to read something for her.
Sure.
She said she remembers having 30+ absences because she had to leave early for infusions before she switched to Saturdays. And the school threatened to not send her to her junior year because she had so many absences. But that was eventually waived once everybody understood it was for medical reasons. But for a while, it was a very big hurdle and deal that she and her family had to deal with. So I think that, you know, to your point of advocating for, you know, making sure everybody is aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, it can feel, you know, again, people might have different levels of how much do I want to share, but I think, you know, it's really important that, you know, if you see on paper this many days missed, right? But if you know this is the reason why, and this is our, you know, our situation, and this is what my, you know, my life looks like with, you know, and even appointments and therapies. I mean, that's something too, where, you know, we know it's not just infusions, but, you know, there's quite a few monitoring appointments, and those don't always fit neatly into the non-school days or after school gets out, you know, or it can be hard. Like Axel, we did speech, we still do every Thursday afternoon after school. And there are days where he's really tired, you know, that's a long day. And what do you prioritize, right? School is super important, but speech therapy is very important. And we have to keep up with our appointments and infusions. So I think balancing all of that also takes an added level of just scheduling and rescheduling. And, you know, there's a piece of that it could be a full-time job, you know, just all the scheduling. But I think, again, I would often email a lot, like, here's what's going on, you know, we have an infusion, and then we have a, you know, this appointment on Thursday morning, and then, you know, we've got this going on, and this is why. And I think being really transparent about the why for the absences, and is there anything we can do to make up at home, or if it gets to a certain point, is there something we need to do? I would hope school teams are very eager and willing to work with you. And if not, again, I would just keep advocating and calling if that becomes an issue, you know, talking to the school, talking to the district office, talking to advocates, talking to, you know, local community members who may have had similar experiences about, you know, this is what's going on. But I would hope the school and the district would be, you know, or whatever your school setup looks like, would be very willing to work with you on the unique aspects to what your attendance might look like.
So, again, I'm using myself as an example. But even before I was diagnosed, I remember in elementary school being very prone to falling. And, you know, I think that's an issue with many of our kids, right? We're just a little bit weaker. Even when we're still mobile, an accidental knock from a classmate, you know, you can fall hard. And I can imagine that being challenging and scary for the parents as well. So do you have any advice? You know, I know my sister says with her kids are gonna fall, you gotta teach them to get up. But what would your advice be for a parent?
Yeah, and it's hard, right? Because that's, you know, that's something that we want our kids to be as safe as possible. And sometimes schools can be very big physical environments to navigate, the playground and staircases and on and off buses and, you know, hallways and items and PE and all the things, which is great. That's part of school. I know there were times, and this can be something to look into too, where if you can have your child's doctor or specialist or therapist write something up, that can be helpful to the school team too, to say, you know, this is what we're, you know, we know about the child, therefore, how can we support them at school, right? So sometimes the parent just saying it or advocating may not that it wouldn't be believed or received well, but just may not paint the picture in a way that it would if one of your care team professionals can say, this is, you know, this is what we see or what we know. And oftentimes they can say in other school settings, you know, maybe this is what happened, and then that can be information that can be shared and can be really helpful.
So for instance, have your doctor write, please don't make them play dodgeball.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And sometimes you have to push a little bit on that. Like, this is okay, this is not okay. But hopefully you have a school team that's really receptive to saying, okay, if this isn't an option, well, we can do this instead, or this is an alternative activity, or this is, you know, we did do a lot of that, even just with Axel's broken arm, you know, to say, well, if this is not something he can participate in, can we do this instead? So hopefully, yeah, schools should be very receptive to that.
My middle school, was very, they dealt with that very well, because obviously I'm in a wheelchair and can't walk, and they had me in a PE class, and I'm like, well, obviously I'm not gonna be able to do any of the physical, activities. So what they did is when I had a like health class, I was in that because the health class was something I was able to do, because that wasn't any physical stuff. But when the days that they were like actually in the gym playing volleyball or whatever it may have been, they actually let me go to the library and do like a study hall period. And like, cause they knew that I think this is when I was still out like once a week for home infusions. Even though I wasn't going to do, I was still out once a week because of my home infusions. And they actually, like, they understood that I had to be out. And so they're like, instead of making me like sit in the gym and just watching them play, I was able to go to the library and get caught up on my schoolwork from when I was not there, which I thought was very helpful for me.
That's great.
Yeah, that is great. And again, that should be something that should be very manageable for schools, just to have lots of different options for kids with the different activities.
So what do you do if your school is not receptive? How far do you push, and really, what are your options? Because, schools should be receptive, they should be helpful. But we all know, just like there are good doctors and bad doctors, there are more helpful teachers and less helpful teachers and administrators. So what would your advice be if a parent is trying to, come up against these challenges and they're not receiving help?
Yeah, I think that's something, that unfortunately can happen. I've told, myself, if there's something that, I feel like is happening that doesn't feel right, or, with any of my kids, that's something I want to keep asking. And, I think it's a good message for families, I think, in all regards, whether it's your child's physical health or their educational access, is just to make sure you are don't feel like you have to just accept things as they are, and there might be certain limitations to resources that, schools or communities can provide, but continuing to ask, continuing to say, this is what we as a family feel is best for our child. How can we accomplish this together? And if, because there are so many people on that team, sometimes you'll just have connections or relationships with people that you feel like, okay, just like you said, with, excuse me, doctors or therapists, that you might feel like this is someone that we communicate well and we can work together and we can really make traction and find those people and those partners to say, here's what we think is best for our child. And we can't, not everything is perfectly possible at every second of every day, but I think we can always try and do better. There's that Maya Angelou quote, do the best you can, and then when you know better, do better, and I love that in many aspects of my life and the world. But I think when we think about our kids and education, we're going to do the very best we can for our kids, and then we may learn more and say, okay, now we're going to do this, and actually that maybe didn't work as well. Now we're going to do this. We're going to try this. So when I think about, our kids being as successful as possible in life, continuing to ask, what if we were to try this? How about if we did this? I'm seeing this in speech therapy. What does that look like in school is really going to help just inform the school team on how to help our kids be most successful.
You and Morgan and Haley have all talked about missing school for infusions. And I didn't have that issue because there was no treatment when I was in school until college. In college, you have a great amount of flexibility. And I was always able to have school Monday through Thursday. Fridays were free for infusion, so I avoided that. But I do know from others in the community that some are having infusions at school. Is that something that you've considered or advice you would give?
I would love that. We have not pursued it yet, but I think it's a great idea. We do infusions at our local children's hospital. That's just our routine right now. So he does miss school, which is something at some point in time we may look at other options. Just kind of, as with everything, you kind of figure out what works for your family at the time, and you do that. But I love that idea. I've heard of that, and I've seen that happen where kids have their backpacks and they run around. I think it's a fantastic idea, not only for the child to be able to, get their infusions and still access school, but I think it's also that piece of like showing the entire community, like all of us need different things to be healthy and thrive and be successful. And that's just what this friend needs, and another friend might need something else. So yeah, I would love to pursue that at some point. We're kind of in a good groove right now, but we know that can evolve as kids grow. So we'll continue to explore options for sure.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting. I mean, I used to get my infusions at work, so it's always a different way of handling it, different options, and that's how we learn from each other. Right?
Exactly.
How are you doing it? What was your biggest challenge? So I think that's what I'm gonna ask you next. Was your biggest challenge so far, and what are you the most concerned about going forward?
Yeah, I think we One thing I really appreciate is like a lot of times we were asked like what are your hopes and desires for your child in school, and that always felt really good because we get into the technical, and so we'd always share we just always wanted Axel to feel like he was part of a school community and connecting with kids and feeling like he was a student, and this was a great place for him, and that's been the case. I think as kids he's made great friends, and he's just been really welcomed, and it's been wonderful. I think as kids get older, that can change and friendships change, and so sometimes I think about you know as school gets more complicated in the middle and high school, and you're in different classes and clubs and extracurriculars, will that get more challenging? But I also think about when Axel was a baby, and I'm gonna try not to cry, and I always wondered, like, what's life going to look like in 5 years, and what's school going to look like? And he is thriving. So I look back and think I put so much energy into worrying and what will it look like? And if I could go back and tell that person, like, it's going to be okay. It may not look exactly how you pictured or exactly who you envisioned, but like, you got this, you have strength, he has strength. And so when I start to think about like, what does that look like? I just have to remind myself, like, for the right here and now, certainly we have challenges. We all have challenges. Every child, every family has their own challenges, but we have strength and we have support, and we have a lovely community, our greater Pompe community, that's helping us do the very best we can. And I know when we meet those new challenges, we will get through them as we have the challenges we've seen in the last 6 years of his life. So it's, easier said than done, but I try to just live in the moment and celebrate all the good that's happening right now.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Having friends in school is like the best thing, because I remember like some days because I had a one-on-one helper, and I remember some days she would be late coming in, like, for whatever reason, and class was already starting, and I needed my stuff, and there was no way that I was gonna be able to get to my backpack and get my, binders or whatever it may have been out of my backpack myself. And so I remember saying to some of my specific friends that I was close with, like, hey, I'm sorry, but I don't mean to ask you for help, but like, can you please help me for, like, just a few minutes? And they were very good with that. Most of them I asked, if not all of them, I'm pretty sure all of them never told me no. It was never a no, and they would always help me, which was always nice. And Colleen, you had me tearing up when I don't know, when other people cry, I cry. Like, like, you had me tearing up, girl. But anyway, but yeah, definitely having your group of friends that are always there for you whenever you may need it is, something very important to me, because a lot of people nowadays will tell you no. Like, it's just today's world has just changed so much. And I'm very lucky that I had those close-knit friends at school that would be willing to help me. That was awesome, especially on the mornings that my one-on-one couldn't get, there on time because of a doctor's appointment or whatever it may have been. So, yeah.
Haley, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit and ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay. So you're talking about elementary school and middle school and high school from the experience of Axel, right? Living it. What advice would you give parents that are worried about their kiddos? What would you tell them?
I would, make sure that you let the school know, whatever your needs are, and definitely let them know what's most important. And I guess it's kind of hard because I'm not a parent, but my mom and dad made sure throughout my career that everything was covered that I needed. And I was very lucky that in middle school that my dad taught at the same school that I went to. And so, if I need anything, my dad was always right there. As long as he wasn't in the middle of a class or anything. If I needed him, they would go get him. And then when I was in high school, my grandma taught at the same school that I went to. So I was very lucky to have family members there. But I know everyone doesn't get that lucky. And I'm sure, Axel would go to the same school that Colleen's at, possibly. So, so I know that might be very helpful for him, when he gets to that point. But it's just making sure that they know everything. And I'm gonna be really honest with you. Schools around me, I live in such a small town that when you tell my teachers I have Pompe, they're like, "What's that? Like, what is it?" Like they don't know. Like, and I don't know. I posted on Facebook a few weeks, and I know this doesn't have to do anything with school, but I had to go to the ER a couple of weeks ago. Most of you may have known. And then I went to my local ER, and then my mom, she came in and she was like, "So what's Pompe? Like, what is it?" And so I feel like I feel like for schools, you need to make sure that they understand what it is that your child has
Mhm.
and how it affects them and what they can or cannot do because of it.
Mhm.
Like, like the bathroom situation for me, like that's a whole nother story. And so I think it's just very important that they know what it is, they have an understanding of it, and they know what, how they need to be there for you to assist. That's what I would say. And I feel like that's what my mom would say too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we all sometimes, especially when we talk to doctors, right? There are things that we share about our life and our experiences and our challenges that even experts will go, wow, I never thought about that,
Yeah.
right? So what is something that, all of you have a challenge you've had that you were just like, it was a surprise to others that you took, that, how do I say it? Yeah, just a challenge or an experience that you didn't think would be an issue and it was, or you were afraid it was going to be an issue and it wasn't.
For me,
Good point.
it was definitely PT, OT, and speech. Your school goals are definitely different than your normal life goals because I remember I took speech in 5th grade. They're like, "You met all your school goals, so we won't see you anymore, and we'll basically just follow up with you once a month and make sure nothing has changed." And and one of my PT people, they literally took me out of class and just stand me up in my wheelchair, and that was something that I could do at home on my own time. And so it was kind of frustrating to me that for PT especially that they would take me out of class time to literally do something to me that I could do at home. That was very frustrating. OT, I don't remember doing OT as well. I did do OT, but PT and PT is the main thing that continued. But when I was in like 7th grade, he was basically like, "You met all of your school goals, so I'm not gonna see you anymore and just check on you once a month." And it was like, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that the school goals, it might not be the goals of your normal life goals because like when I go to Duke, I might have different goals for like them. Whereas like school goals was just you had to make sure you were doing this, this, and this. And it was just like I'm not gonna lie, but it was a waste of my time. It was a waste of it was a waste of pulling me out of class when I'm already missing school once a week for my infusions. And that was a challenge, and it was hard on my mom and dad because they didn't really understand either why they were pulling me out of class for something I could do and they could help me with at home. So that was one of the challenges, was just pulling me out of class for, I don't want to say no reason, but you know what I mean. It's just,
So Morgan says that when they tried to do that with her, she would refuse. And they get offended and mad, but eventually they left her alone.
I
But
still
that's
did it.
awesome.
I still did it just because I knew I needed to do it, and the physical therapist, he wasn't doing things like that with me at first, but then the longer I was seeing him, it was kind of like, okay, you're accomplishing everything I'm asking you to do, and you're doing it just fine, and so they would try to move on to something else, and then eventually it just got to stand me up in my wheelchair and staying there for 30 minutes and just talking to him the whole time.
I just have a very fun personality, and and if I don't want to do something, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Mhm. But I would say that's the really only challenge I had was, those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about too, like, this was not necessarily a challenge for us in elementary school, but like I said, we were getting services in the home for speech therapy and physical therapy. And then when COVID hit, we tried to do on like virtual speech therapy, and Axel was like 2 and 3 years old, and he just was not it was really tough, right? And it's really hard to, set a toddler in front of the laptop and play games. Is very different than when you have someone that comes and is working with you. And so I remember feeling like that was really discouraging. It felt like it was sort of a setback for us and like this great progress we were making. And I can only imagine like what that was like for kids. And Haley, you spoke beautifully about how online learning can be a real asset, but I think for younger kids who really thrive on that like in-person instruction when COVID, that impact that may have had for like our younger elementary age students, like that was probably very hard. So I think, again, we have our ups and downs and we do the best we can, but just those, when you've got a good momentum and then something sets you on a different course, that can be really challenging. And we got back on track and it was okay. But, I think there are those life things that happen either to, the child or the family or in greater society that, sort of throw the trajectory off of some good momentum you're making that can be frustrating, and you do fine and you get back to where you need to be. But that that was hard as a mom. And I know we were trying so hard to do speech therapy virtually. And there were a lot of moments of like, oh, this is hard. I wish we could do this in a different way.
Mhm.
And I will have to admit, like, since online school, like, they were still checking in on me when I was in public school, even though they weren't really doing anything with me anymore. Other than like just, assessments and stuff, to make sure I'm still doing good. And just really coming to the classroom like, hey, you doing okay? All right, see you in a month. Like, but COVID, like online school, they don't offer any types of services like that. And so really the only type of services I had after I left public school really is just going down to Duke and doing physical therapy down there. And I'm not gonna lie, life is busy, and we got out of the habit of going to Duke because literally for 10 years after my infusion, we would go to the physical therapy place while we were already at Duke and do physical therapy once a week there. And then after we got out of, going to Duke once a week, we were like, oh my gosh, like it's been months since I've done PT, like I'm like, I need to get back into this. And so COVID has brought me online school and overall many blessings, but it also brought me things like that, where I just feel like life gets in your way sometimes, and things like that fall off, and I'm like, Mom, or, whoever, like, I need to get back down there and do PT, because the more I go without, working out or doing something, like, my body is more than likely gonna get weaker. And
Mhm.
so it's just, finding time to do things like that that are, important to you.
Yeah, I think that's such a challenge. I think y'all both mentioned that really well, that, when you're in school and you have infusions and you've got PT and OT and all of that, it's challenging, right? How do you fit everything in? And,
There's no way.
yeah, fine, I
I mean,
love,
there is a way, but it's hard. And that's why when I have appointments, we try to do 2 or 3 in a day, just so we don't have to drive an hour again. And,
Mhm.
and especially with my school, we try to do 3 or 4 appointments in a day. And I will say it makes me exhausted.
Yeah,
Ultimately, not having to drive down there so much and getting them all knocked out at once is the best thing.
yeah, it's the trade-off. It's how do you balance it all? And I think that looks different for everybody, because then you also have parents that work, parents that don't work. I mean, that's its own challenges.
Yep.
So I think we need to all remind ourselves that it's okay if things are a struggle, and that sometimes something slips. We're all, what was that quote you said with, from Maya Angelou?
I know I'm gonna find it because I don't know that I'm saying it beautifully, but I wanna. So when yeah, I'm gonna Google it so I can say it. So
Okay.
do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
I love that. I think that that's perfect for all of us in this situation. So,
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we all could look back, and like you said, think I should have done this or that. And then, I, again, trying to just be really present into, like, we've got a lot of great things going, and we also have a lot of great people to rely on. And I've learned so much from our Pompeii community about, just, helping our kids just, thrive and be as strong as possible. And so, yeah, I really appreciate, just learning. Thank you, Haley, so much for sharing. I know, I always tell Haley she's just such a, bright light in our world and Pompeii and connecting with all of you. And I think we can just, encourage each other and provide that support. And, school was always a big wondering of mine when Axel was little, and having gone through this first year, and, felt that, we had some really great collaboration and partnership that helped him be successful. I was really hoping to just be able to give back, here are some of the things we learned, but I'm always willing to share my contact information if people have questions or I can help in any way, mom to mom or mom to dad or parent or caregiver, about helping our kids be as successful as possible. I'm here to help and grateful for the support we've received.
And
Yeah.
I agree with Colleen. I think every single story, even for kids with Pompe, are different. Like, my situation might be different than Axel's situation. We're in a different stage of life. Right? And so, the elementary, that might be different than middle and high school. Like, when you get to middle and high school, like, it's, much harder. The work is much harder. The homework is much more. And, things like that. And like Colleen said, every story and every kid is different, and their story is unique, and their story is worth hearing and worth telling.
absolutely. And just like you offered, to be a resource to all the parents and caregivers out there. I'm speaking for Morgan and Haley, but I'm sure that they're willing to talk to any kiddos out there that have questions or concerns, and I'm happy to do the same.
Of course.
We've got it great. We really do it. We're very lucky in the Pompeii community. to have the support that we have for each other. And even though each of our journeys is different, everybody's Pompe is different, right? We can learn from each other, we can support each other. We can be an understanding ear when there's frustrations. So I think it really comes back to International Pompe Day slogan, right? Together we are strong. And this proves it once again. So we're just about to the hour. So does anybody have any final thoughts? If not, Colleen, thank you. You know, this has been great. Thank you so much. And Haley and Morgan, really appreciate y'all's openness and willingness to share.
No
So,
problem. Thank you so much, Colleen, again.
Yes, thank you. And absolutely, thank you, Morgan, for sharing as well. I think, you know, I'm so grateful, to just hear about experiences and again, we can all learn from each other and do better, you know, because of what we can share with each other. So thank you, Haley and Morgan, for speaking from the heart. Thanks, Tiffany, for coordinating and facilitating, and thanks, to the entire team for just setting this up. And I look forward to learning more from our community and future sessions, and always here to support however I can.